As the 15th century drew to a close, winds of change were blowing across old Europe. The Portuguese monarchs instructed their finest seafarers to discover new trading routes. Their ships were impelled by a political desire to control the economy. The operations centre of these expeditions was Lisbon. The seafarers lived in an old chapel, the site where the Geronimo's monastery was subsequently built, and organised the ships and crews for this adventure in the nearby Belém Tower, the port they set sail from. The earliest voyages aimed to find routes to the east by sailing round Africa and thus control the Asian spice trade. But in 1492, Christopher Columbus undertook a voyage for the Spanish crown in the opposite direction. His discovery of the land that came to be known as the New World forced Portugal to change track. Portuguese ships were also sailing the Atlantic in search of new routes and intensified their exploration of the Indian Ocean. None of this, however, was enough to safeguard their preeminence. Portugal needed a political weapon, the Atlas Miller. It was commissioned by King Manuel I in 1517 and probably intended for the monarch of the neighbouring country, Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor. It was perhaps made available to him by giving it to his sister Leonor of Austria, the King of Portugal's future wife. But it was a poisoned chalice. The world was shown as a huge lake, completely surrounded by land, making it impossible to reach the Moluccas, the Spice Islands, by sailing west as the Spanish crown intended. Despite portraying the lands accurately, the aim of this atlas was not to depict the entire known world, but to create uncertainty about the East and the routes to get there. False information was used deliberately. Regions not yet explored by the Portuguese were invented. Uncharted territories were drawn as if they had already been discovered, and the names of cities on some coasts were omitted to mislead other seafarers. This was despite the vast knowledge of the atlas makers, Lopo Homem, the cosmographer, Pedro Reinel, the cartographer, and his son Jorge. Their talent can be seen in the precise courses they drew, the equator, the tropics, latitudes, etc. The maps in this atlas are veritable maritime charts, containing all the information necessary for navigation. When outlining continents, these mapmakers drew the coasts in great detail and pinpointed the most important cities. Shortly afterwards, they received another commission far removed from the specious contents of this atlas. In the Alcázar of Seville, an expedition that was to change the course of history was being organized. The voyage begun by Ferdinand Magellan and finished by Juan Sebastián Elcano. The charts produced by the Reinels must have been part of the myriad of documents handled by the Casa de la Contratación, amongst throngs of civil servants, navigation officers and traders. With the help of these cartographers, ships set sail from Seville on the 10th of August 1519 towards the west, the aim being to reach the Spice Islands without crossing Portuguese waters. Sailing south along the Atlantic coast of South America, they found a strait leading into the Pacific and towards the east. Magellan died before the end of the voyage, but 18 of his crew, captained by Elcano, managed to sail home 3 years later. This was the first circumnavigation of the globe, and it proved the Atlas Miller to be a political instrument meticulously designed to deceive the enemy. Although this atlas was never finished, it is both a masterpiece of cartography and a remarkable work of art, featuring such lavish materials as gold and silver, which would be extraordinary if the purpose of this series of charts were merely practical. The miniatures by Antonio de Holanda are as lavish as those in contemporary books of ours, and feature eye-catching portrayals of new lands and hitherto unheard of fauna and flora. They can be admired today with the same quality thanks to the efforts of Moleiro editor. The painstaking production of this quasi-original atlas entails traditional craftsmanship and materials that replicate the feel of the parchment and the exact colours and design of the original. This edition, strictly limited to 987 copies, includes a magnificent companion volume offering an in-depth understanding of its entire history. A history that arose from the determination to create and destroy powerful kingdoms. An atlas to conquer the world.